And you see the way they're trying to introduce climate change into this now.
Fuck climate change.
That shit.
The climate changes all the fucking time. Sorry, I had to say that.
Everyone.
It's not fucking real. Sorry. Did I say that out loud?
Yo. It's just the natural tide of the Earth, Gregorian clock.
Or did you know if you add a carbon tax, it'll change the weather?
Yeah,
sure. Anyway, sorry.
So,
idiots. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No.
These are things that boil at my fucking brain.
DC, I feel you. And I know this whole climate change thing is such a sham. It doesn't exist because it's just natural Earth doing its thing. You can't control the Earth, man. Welcome back for a brand new episode. You know, this episode is a lot lighter. We covered a lot of the real estate market stats last week, but this week we have something interesting in the books. And it's been something I've been thinking about a lot. And it's been boiling up over the past, let's say, 4 years, ever since the pandemic happened. And that is going to be the digital ID system that is being planned to be implemented. But before we get into it, man, we got the main guy here, the man of the hour, DC.
What's up, buddy? How are you?
With his bright yellow shirt. I think this is the brightest, this is second. You had a bright orange one. Orange for like the episode as 59.
Yeah.
And now the bright. So are you getting into a lot more brighter colors?
Well, Rabbi, as you know, and he always tries to get me more colors.
Yeah, shout out to Rabbi.
Yeah. So this is one of the ones he picked out. And so it's like I don't have a lot of nice shirts. It's like there's a nice Burberry shirt. I'm like, I don't know, I don't want to wear it out and ruin it. I don't usually do flashy shit. So it's funny. And so he convinced me. He's like, I'll just put it on.
Just get it on, bro.
Yeah. So yeah.
And especially goes good with your tan too, guys. I know thank you. You still got the tan from your trip about 2 weeks ago. So you're still looking fresh.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Digital ID, man. Let's get into it. You know, the reason I bring this up is because
hopefully we're not going to get in trouble for this, but that's
who cares? Who cares? What are you going to do about it, huh? What are you going to do? But, yo, DC, listen. Ever since that Vax Pass happened, I always thought that it was the genesis of more to come. It was just testing out our compliance to see how we were going to be.
100%.
Like, if we kind of have this thing to dictate where they can go, what they can do, and what places they can enter, they're like, okay, they'll follow orders.
Yeah. I was a little worried when the Vax Pass came out because, like we're saying like how much information in there, like what do we also have to put on there? Do my kids need to get like a vaccination and all this other stuff? Because it's like, there's all these studies and stuff too about, vaccinations for kids. And if you do too many of them, I had a friend of mine at work where she was Russian and she wasn't, I guess, up to date, quote unquote. They gave her like a cocktail and stuff and she couldn't walk for 6 months after having, because it was too much on her system. And even though she knew it was too much. So she was in her 30s and it overloaded her system. Well, what happens if you're kids and all of a sudden they come up with these fake vaccines or this other stuff and they make your kids get them? And then if you don't have them on a digital ID, you can't even go to school or something. They can't do anything, And I was worried about my kids too. I'm like, where is this world heading? And then obviously worried about the mark of the beast. This is a beast system. You can't buy and sell without having this, form. But it's like my head started spinning, right? I'm like,
you start seeing like where this thing is going because
I was almost going to lose sleep. It was like when this digital ID was coming out. I'm like, because there was a lot of propaganda, I guess, around it both ways, I guess. And people are saying, oh, look how easy it is. I'm like, no, man. And it's like, what was worrying me before the digital IDs, and you see those people getting those chips in their hands.
Like even Neuralink too.
Yeah.
And what they're trying to model is something like China, with the social credit system. Well,
before you get into that, like, did you ever watch, we talked about this Black Mirror?
Yes.
That episode?
Yes.
And about it's on a social system where she like, this one girl, like, you smile at your neighbors, you get a social credit. If you go below social credit, you get degraded, you can't do anything. That fucked the shit out of me. Like, I was like, this better not happen. I'm like, well, it's an episode. And she went down and like, she had like a one bad meltdown and then basically was kicked out of society and basically left to die. And they were like, holy shit. And then when this started coming out, this digital ID, I remember Black Mirror, predictive programming, right?
Exactly.
Basically scaring us, follow in line. This could happen to you. And that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah. Yeah. And and the thing is, we spoke about predictive programming about 3 episodes ago. When they are looking to implement something, they're going to give you signs of it. It might be a joke, it might be a movie, it might be a song, but they're trying to get you they're trying to normalize the idea of it happening in reality. So when it does happen, you're not surprised. So when they did come out with it with the Vax Pass and they're restricting you from everything, it was, especially now you got a barcode that you carry everywhere and they can scan it at restaurants. You can eat here if you're not vaccinated. There's a lot more that comes out of it. And the predictions that they're making is that everything is going to be in a digital ID system. So it's going to be able to control where you can travel. The cars, your car, everything is going to be electric in the next 20 or something.
Which they can just turn a switch and turn it off.
Turn a switch, turn it off.
Oh, and your banking system.
It's going to be digital currency.
Well, remember, they froze all the truckers. You know, there's people anybody supported. They're able to freeze them. That was
Freeze
also
your
freeze your bank account.
Yeah.
With the digital currency, you're screwed.
Yeah. So that is like where we're going. And I think what's scary is that people are not really worried about this. People are moving as if life is just normal. It's every single, like, hey,
what it makes me laugh at that is there's other people pushing for it, thinking like it's the future, it's the way you should go. I'm like, you don't get it. Like, you don't get it. Like, cash, like, you can't tip anybody some cash. You can't even, like, somebody, like, you know, like, even give a nickel to your kid for, like, you know, to go play a video game or something like that too. Everything gets tracked, you know, like, even giving, like, you know, like, just somebody a tip, like a homeless person, that would give you just like everything. It's like, if it gets rid of the currency, then, you know, then who owns a currency? And then you can lose everything and be happy about losing everything, because literally they can wipe out everything you've ever owned. And I say they, like anybody, because even a hacker can go in. Say you had digital currency. Let's say it's not the government. Let's say it's somebody else. Say that the government is not nefarious. Right? Let's say the government is really out there for your well-being. Okay.
They actually care about you.
They actually care about you. Exactly. You're not just a number, right? Yeah. And, you know, and they're not trying to get you into the beast systems. Let's live in this perfect world. And then you have somebody who's a hacker and he wants your stuff, or she wants your stuff. If everything's online and they can hack in, they can just remove all of your money, take away the deed of your house, you maybe remove your children's birth certificates. Everything is just gone. You could be wiped off the face of the earth. And all they need to do is hack in and try to get that back. It's fucking scary.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane how things are moving. And it felt like they were trying to usher this new way of living really quick. Like, they saw this, because this has been in the works for the past, let's say 20 something, probably even early in the 90s, because they've been predicting this for a long time, because they want to be able to control you every single aspect of.
Well, it's been longer than that, buddy.
Longer than that?
Do you know who George Orwell is?
1984.
1984, right? In 1948. Think about that. They were talking about the screens talking to you, controlling people. And everyone was talking during the pandemic. It felt like 1984, the book. So that was predicted from programming even back then, in the 40s. This has been part of the system for a long period of time.
Yeah, it has. Even with food too. So what's up?
No, I'm just saying we can get into like just totally out of the whole digital ID stuff and talk about
it's just so deep.
It is so deep because the digital ID can be like, if we're talking about like electric cars, anything electric, the problem I have with electric cars is numberful. Like, if you follow me on Instagram, you know I make fun of electric cars all the time.
What do you think? Do you think they're like, it's not like a man shouldn't be driving an electric car, or is it?
Well, it's just everything. It's like, it's funny. No, not that. Like, some of the electric cars, I would drive, like, you know, instead
Tesla.
Fuck Tesla. I would stick with my Porsches, right? I like the Taycan, but to me, the infrastructure is not there. I can't imagine driving to some of my clients. I'm driving 300 kilometers away. Imagine telling my clients, hold on a second. Like, I got to find a place to charge my car. And then you get there and you have to wait 45 minutes and take another 45 minutes in between houses, like an hour and a half just to fuel up my car. That ain't going to happen. The infrastructure is just not there. Right. But one of the jokes that made me laugh is like, what do you say if somebody traveling home with diarrhea or somebody driving an electric car?
Diarrhea, electric car?
Yeah.
What is it?
Neither one's going to assure you're going to make it home, right? So it's kind of the idea, right? Like, so the problem I have with electric cars is there's two folds. One is that, well, there's a number of them. One is that we don't have the infrastructure for it, right? So we don't have charging stations. They're not capable of doing it. They're here and there, but you know, if you're somebody who uses the car as often as I do, you constantly, even if I have my car filled up at night, first of all, the battery degrades. So it's like you might get 300 kilometers in the first year, maybe 200 the second year. Then you have to find out charging stations along the way. The second thing is like we don't have enough power to power.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have enough electricity to power all these cars.
Mm-hmm.
You got forms of government trying to take away gas stoves and fireplace, and they've put everything electric. When I worked at Toronto Hydro, we already had a problem with the grid. There's brownouts throughout the city just to make sure that we had enough power, just supplying the power. Now you're trying to add in electric cars, which suck out a lot of energy out of the grid, and electric stoves. We don't have that capability. It's impossible. So if you're living in Toronto, an electric car, unless you use it periodically, does not make sense for you. You don't have the infrastructure. You can't stop to fuel up your car. Your battery will degrade over a certain period of time. So you're not getting the same kilometers that you would out of the car, same mileage. And then at any time, what happens when we have these brownouts? Like, I don't know about you and where you live, but we get blackouts all the time. Mm-hmm. So if there's a blackout, thank God I have a generator. But if there's a blackout in my house and I don't have a generator, I can't go anywhere. If we have both electric cars, me and my wife, we're screwed. Mm-hmm. Then there's the whole thing. Like, and then the third problem is like control. You know that they can turn on, and they try to make a kill switch even on gas cars as of 2026, but they can do kill switches on any electric car anytime they want now. Mm-hmm. So if somebody steals your car, theoretically, you can call Tesla or Porsche and they can just turn off your car.
Yeah. That's how it's going to be. So
that's part of the digital ID.
That's digital ID. And what they're going to be doing is they're going to be controlling your behavior. So the social credit score system is going to be tied how good of a citizen you are. How much are you contributing to the society? How far can you travel?
Do you think, let's say, on top of that being a good citizen, I think they already don't want us driving cars.
Yeah.
So that's why they're making it difficult for you to travel. Mm-hmm. There's going to be 15-minute cities and all that stuff.
Yep.
But even driving into Toronto here, have you noticed all like the parking levels have gone up? The amount of
they're shrinking.
Yeah. So we're able to, they're like, even over here on Bloor Street, they've reduced all of our lanes to 2 lanes, one each way. They don't want people. They don't want people driving.
Why is it so narrow now? Because I think
they don't want people driving.
Wider.
They don't want people driving, and they've just increased all of the parking fines.
The
price. And Olivia Chow will say something like, "Well, with the city needs the money for the fund. This it's part of a bigger agenda. Mm-hmm. They already don't want you driving. It's almost impossible to drive downtown. Good luck." Anytime after 2:00, any day of the week.
Car sick now, all this starts and stops.
Well, yeah. Not to mention too, they're shutting down parts of the Gardner. They're reducing the amount of Gardner. They don't want you driving because they're making it hard for you to drive. They're making it feel like a burden for you to drive. And now, in case you park in the wrong spot, you're getting hammered. Mm-hmm. Like if you park right in front of my parking right here, and it's a quote unquote bike lane, it's starting at $150 fine. Starting, it's at $300. $150 to $300. So you make a mistake once, you can get hammered. People already can't afford stuff. Mm-hmm. So it all ties in together. Do you see how the digital ID also, how I'm seeing this happens? If you have enough of this, they already don't want you driving. If you have enough of these parking violations, then it'll go on your digital ID, your credit score decrease, and you won't be allowed to drive, and they can turn off your car.
You can turn off your car.
Done.
And
now, is that crazy or is that possible? Because we already have we already know they can turn off your car. Mm-hmm. And we already know that they're already forcing us not to wanting to drive. Mm-hmm. So if you have enough parking tickets, is it that far-fetched that they could just, with your digital ID, having all that information, turn your credit score on, you have to go in jail for, social jail for a certain time before you're able to drive again. Is that far-fetched?
It's not. And you see the way they're trying to introduce climate change into this now.
Fuck climate change.
That shit.
The climate changes all the fucking time. Sorry, I had to say that.
So everyone.
It's not fucking real. Sorry. Did I say that out loud?
Yo. It's just the natural tide of the earth. We spoke about the Gregorian clock.
Or did you know if you add a carbon tax, it'll change the weather?
Yeah,
sure. Anyway, sorry.
So,
idiots.
I'm just trying to.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. No. These are things that boil at my fucking brain.
DC, I feel you, and I know this whole climate change thing is such a sham. It doesn't exist because it's just natural Earth doing its thing. You can't control the Earth, man. You can't. I
had a teacher. I was in I forget it was elementary school or something.
You can't control it.
He was showing us. He goes, "Yeah, we're part of an. We have. If you check out the history of the world, we go through ice ages and then we go through warm spots, ice ages and stuff too. It's like this is part of the natural progression we're in here. When the world heats up and it slows down, we were supposed to be underwater in New York City back in 19, like I think it was like in the 60s stuff too. And it's like the water level's gone up and it goes down. Well, remember when Bob Gore came out and he said that the whole Antarctic is going to be, you know, all the icebergs were supposed to be melt by in the next 10 years, 20 something. And that hasn't happened. And he just shut up. Oh, they changed global warming to now climate change. What happened to acid rain? And oh my God, every 10 years they come up with some sort of bullshit to tax us.
To try and to control you too. So on that topic, the way it ties into the digital ID is that your travel, let's say if you want to fly out to New York.
But Taylor Swift can do it.
Taylor Swift can do it, and from Tokyo in her private jet and everything, all the way to the Super Bowl. We'll chat about that next week. But what's happening is that you'll be restricted how much you can travel. So let's say you went to New York and you try and go buy a plane ticket. They're going to be able to stop you because you're going to be using digital currency to buy that ticket. So they're going to be like, oh, you're trying to travel. This is a plane ticket. You've already wasted your carbon allowance for the month. So now you got to wait until 2 months until you get re-upped again to be able to travel. But
I bet you can buy those credits off of other people. If you're a business person, they're buying
credits.
Oh, yeah.
You can buy credits. Yeah.
Because that helps.
Yeah.
It just, God.
And the thing is, people don't see it's all coming together with the biometric system, you being able to go to the airport, you scanning your face. We're going to be under mass surveillance moving forward. They'll be able to know where you are every single time. Like there'll be cameras everywhere. If you litter, boom, that's David Chinelli. Deduct 10 points, right? Oh, you're trying to buy another drink at the bar. You've already had your alcohol limit, right? We control everything that you're
See
doing.
how fast that the digital, I remember we were going to talk about this a little bit, but the LCBO.
The LCBO is trying to
they tried to. I guess they got shut down. I went home the other night. I'm like, there's no way. And that's, So here's what's happening in the LCBO. So if you're not here in Ontario, we have something called the LCBO, which is our liquor board, and they control all of the purchases which are allowed to buy liquor in Ontario. So we have a store, like a liquor store called the LCBO. When I travel to an LCBO not too far from here, there's so much theft happening. Like we had one guy coming in, like they're saying like, and it's one of the nicer areas and stuff too. And like the one guy was telling me behind there, he's like, yeah, these people come in with needles, like these homeless people, they come in, they allow them to steal a couple bottles so they won't poke anybody. They say they have AIDS or something on the needles, or heroin and it's like, they do this every day. They steal a bottle every day. So what they're trying to say now is like, well, see, now this will cut down on theft. Then we'll know who everybody is. Like, whoa, wait a second here. Like, it's again, they're showing you a negative thing. They're allowing this to happen, but why are they allowing this to happen? Why are they not cracking down? It's going to cost us too much money to stop these homeless people from breaking in. And I'm like, just get a security guard at the door.
Yeah. And
you think that's going to be more expensive than implementing a brand new digital currency system at which everybody has to have one? That's such bullshit.
And they know we love to drink. They know, like...
Well, look, during the pandemic, they could not shut down the liquor store. They made people dependent on alcohol. And next thing you know, it's like, well, we can't shut down. Like, it's like cracked for most people. Like, they can't live without their 100%. Beer. We're already shoving up in their house. Like, might as well feed them. Like give the peasants their alcohol so they can make them happy.
Make them reliant.
Exactly.
Yeah. Why do you think people are not really alert to this? Because if your freedoms are being restricted, why are you letting people?
Because they think we're crazy. I'll be honest with you. When we speak out about this and you tell people about this, they're like, you're too much a conspiracy theorist. We're not even talking about conspiracy. There's nothing conspiracy on there.
This is actually legit.
This is legit. And we're saying, well, this is actually happened in other countries. We talked about China. They have the official recognition. They know where everybody is. If you looked in London, they call the London Eye. Like in London, they have like some certain places, they have cameras every spot. They've already been doing that. Reminds me of the movie from Tom Cruise, Minority Report. Remember where everything was on your eye. They knew exactly where you were. In order to get away from the cameras, you had to rip out this thing out of your eye. Precursor, again, predictive programming. So they've told, but the reason why I think people don't push back is, they generally want to believe the government has their best interests at heart. The older generation, they still do. Like I say older generation, like my parents' generation, right? They still they aren't, as rebellious, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Maybe they're not as rebellious as we are. Maybe not looking as deep, and they believe what they're told. I think a little
Like
more
law
than we
and
are.
order.
Right, exactly. Whereas I think some of us were saying like, "Whoa, this doesn't make sense." And I have a lot of smart friends, and they're like, they just. And when I talk about this stuff, again, a lot of them they'll just say you're reading too much, and then you're crazy. And they just believe the media. So the media has done a good job of like not talking about it. So if it's not on the media, it can't be real. And that's what I think most people that I've talked to, that I talk about this, is like, well, if this is true, they would have reported on it. How many times have you heard that? If this was really true, they would have told us by now. They would have reported on that. And I'm like, no, like what's happening? You've seen since the pandemic, all these conspiracy theories all of a sudden are coming true. And now you still don't want to believe it. So either A, it's a comfort thing that people don't want to believe it because it'll shatter what their existence is like. And they're just willfully ignorant.
Do you think at some level people enjoy being controlled?
Yeah.
They like a sense of having an authority.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they don't have to think about like what they need to do. You told me to do this, I do this. I'm a good boy. That's why we got the gold stars in elementary school. They taught us how to do, like, it's part of our upbringing. You do what I say, you get good grades, you get to move on. You do this. Heaven forbid you think outside the box, try to be an entrepreneur. You don't get your gold stars, you get flunked out of school and you'll get ostracized by the community.
Yeah.
So yeah, it goes way back to our programming as kids.
What do you think the repercussions will be with us being ushered into this new system? Like when you think about yourself as a business owner and you know what's coming, right? I know what's coming. And the thing is, I'm scared. I generally am scared too.
I'm scared too because I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I generally don't know. I don't know how I'm going to react. I also have a wife who's much more conservative than me. She kind of puts me in my place, and she laughs. Like she doesn't listen to these a lot of stuff because of my conspiracy theories. She just kind of rolls her eyes a lot of stuff. I think she believes it some stuff, but she goes, "You go a little too deep into this stuff." A lot of times I'll get that. I'm like, okay, I get it. So,
but what does deep mean? Because if
I get to consume
if depth is truth, if truth is depth, how can you get too deep into it? Because if this is the true reality, I just don't think there's something that's too deep. It's like you have a subject.
Because sometimes when you go down a rabbit hole, and if you go down the rabbit hole too often, too deep into the rabbit hole, you'll lose yourself into that rabbit hole. And that was happening to me.
I respectfully disagree.
Well, no, because then I couldn't function in society. Natalie couldn't take me to a party.
Is it because you saw things differently?
Yeah.
But the fact is, right, that is a problem. The fact that you have to go someplace and you have to censor yourself to.
But even back then, like nobody was looking into this stuff. I still get pushed back when I talk about the difference between Catholicism and Christianity and how it's not the same. And it's like, it's right there in front of people. I'm like, you can research the things I'm saying and look up for yourself. And this is not anything new. When was the first Protestant church? Like centuries ago, right? And people still don't want to believe it. So it's like, there's just willful neglect, willful ignorance. So the problem is that most of our society, people are listening to this now who still don't believe what we're saying. They'll still probably call us some like names or something. Dude, we talked about the flat earth. We didn't even create the stuff. We just took comments from people.
History.
I still get people thinking I'm nuts because we talked about it. I'm like, but dude, we didn't say anything. We were literally quoting from other people, trying to figure out where the stuff is coming from. But because we brought up the topic, we're idiots. How can you even think that? I'm like, well, how can you not? Like, when you look at any argument, don't you want to look at both sides and figure out what's the truth? Just because somebody's told you something, and which we have no empirical evidence, believe it or not, on any side of the stuff. Even here, like we're talking about digital ID, we actually have evidence.
We see the path forward.
We see the path forming.
I think what we have is like, we have the ability to discern insight, right? So we can be able to look at what they're doing and how they're looking to usher these concepts into our everyday lives. Like liquor. We love our tequila. We love our whiskeys. We know we have to go buy it. We know we're going to have to use some digital piece of ID to get
Because if you
scanned.
make it, you can get
Pardon?
good luck trying to make it.
Trying to make it, right? So if we implement this thing and you have no choice, if you want your drink, you got to use this thing. Okay, hey, now you have to use it at the bank now to prove your identity.
Yeah.
And now like your money's tied into it. Before you know it, everything is now revolved around this thing. And it goes back to what I was telling you on the phone the other day. There's this concept Jordan Peterson spoke about where the way tyranny happens is that they know how people react and they know how we revolt towards ideas that we don't like. What they do is that they do things by inches. They do something, you revolt, and then they stop. They take another 2 inches. You roll, oh my God, what are you doing? Boom, everything goes back to normal. They take another 2 inches, and this thing goes on and
then
on.
it becomes the norm. So they push it 2 inches, and then they might pull back a little bit, half an inch, but they won't give them the full 2 inches. And then they'll go another 2 inches.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you look back and like, oh my God, look how far have we come. That happens all the time.
Happens all the time.
All the time.
And that's what happens. Like past 2020, this is how things are moving.
Well, that's how drug dealers work.
How, like they give you a little hit.
Taste.
Yeah, okay.
They little here and there.
This is on the house.
Yeah, this is on the house.
This is on the house.
That's exactly what happens. And then next thing you know, there's somebody who's getting an overdose. How did this happen?
Yeah.
It's a little at a time.
And I think this whole thing with inflation and pricing increase and everything like that, it's all making us reliant towards like the government, like subsidized housing. Hey, universal
subsidized housing is the biggest drug that you can imagine. You don't have it leaves welfare. Welfare is the biggest drug that anybody could ever succumb to. Don't worry, you don't have to work. You can sit at home and I'll feed you. Just do nothing. Just do nothing. It's the same thing. Like I was reading a quote the other day. It's like a salary is the drug to make you forget your dreams. Same idea, right? That's the same thing that the welfare does to you, right? Because then you rely on the government, you rely on your job, you rely on somebody else, not here and not God.
Yeah,
you're relying on somebody to keep you alive.
Yeah, someone asked me the other day, like, what are your political views? Right? Naturally, I'm conservative, right? But
surprise.
Yeah.
Entrepreneur being conservative. What's next? The cop eating a donut?
They're like, I was like, self-reliance. Like that is my political view. Like pick yourself up from the bootstraps. This one guy on Twitter the other day was like, 250K salary is like the worst thing that can ever happen to you. Right? It's so much money that you can't quit, but it's enough to keep you going. Right? And to make you forget about everything. And, he got a lot of pushback from that because
he's 100% accurate.
Because it's like, how ungrateful are you for that? People would kill for a $250,000 salary. But imagine it's a job you hate and you got like a family, 3 kids, and you hate this job.
You can't quit.
You cannot quit.
You lose your house, lose your car, lose your wife, lose your kid. Like,
because lifestyle scope, is this scope creep or lifestyle creep? Scope creep, I think, is project.
Scope creep is about a project. You don't
project management, right?
Exactly.
I think lifestyle creep gets because you start spending more because now you have the money. But now to sustain that, it becomes a challenge.
Yeah.
So, and I think this is how people get depressed. They get into all these different vices. Divorces happen. You lose everything. It all becomes 9 hours of your day are spent at this place you hate, but you need it. And last point is you get to this place where you get the diminishing returns of the money. Like, because this is your status quo now. Everything else that comes like, it doesn't matter. And you just hate your life.
You know what's funny too? At that point too, you don't even enjoy the new stuff that you're getting.
Yeah.
You're just doing it just to do it.
You just buy stuff just to buy stuff.
God. And it blows my mind. It's like, do you really need that? And stuff too. It's like, you see people do it. The problem is I see people that shouldn't even be affording this stuff. They can't afford it. They can't afford it. They're buying stuff.
Like
cars and designer clothes and all this stuff too. And I'm like,
new furniture, new
what are
upgrades.
You doing?
Yeah.
For what? So you can have again, that's a total, we can talk a whole topic on that.
Yeah.
And Isaac said, let's wrap this up. So
I know we're getting into it, but where do you see us going from here? I mean, we know what's coming. And you never really finished your thought on this, but
no, because I don't know.
You're generally stumped, eh?
I'm stumped because again, like read the Bible again today, and it said the same thing. It's like, Jesus told us to, or Yeshua, his real name, Yeshua, told us, he's like, why do you care? Don't care about anxiety. Don't think about too far in the future what might happen.
Was that Matthew 5?
Well, I'm on Matthew, Mark, Luke. I'm on Luke. Luke chapter. Shit, I remember. It's on my Bible. But he says it over and over again, right? It just says like, the sparrow or the doesn't care where it's, where its nest is going to be and stuff. And like, and God will provide, basically the animals or the birds don't know like where the food's coming yet. They're surviving. And he goes, and God knows the numbers of the hairs on your head. He goes, how much more precious are you than this bird? So if they aren't worried about where their next meal is coming from, why are you?
Yeah.
So I kind of push back to that a little bit, Owen. I say, and I've had people say like, well, they're like, I have friends of mine that are just getting into conspiracy stuff and all that. And they're constantly worried and staying up at night. I'm like, I was there 2009. And I feel your pain. They're like, you're not worried about it. I'm like, no, I have faith in God. And like, he will show us what he needs us to do. That's why I didn't panic during the pandemic. I was a little bit worried about it. I thought about stuff and what could happen. But again, worrying is as effective. There's that song about wearing sunscreen. Worrying is as effective as chewing bubblegum to solve a math equation. It has the same effect. Worrying about an outcome, which may not happen, will you have the same effect if you're chewing bubblegum to solve a math equation. Basically, they don't correlate. It just may never happen.
Yeah.
So my suggestion to us, roll with the punches. Let's see what happens. Let's stick together. Let's figure out something. If we see something along the line of what's happening, we're out against, we should push back as a society. If they try to push digital currency against us again, they do that. Let's get together and say, we don't want this. They can talk about it. If we see something happening, let's voice our opinion.
We can do it.
That's what we do. We act when we see things.
100%.
Sure, we should be diligent about what may happen, but let's not fret and get too anxious about what may happen. Let's put our thoughts and our energy towards something we can actually change, as opposed to putting our thoughts and energy to something that could, may or may not happen. And that's what I'll leave you with.
Yeah. I wanted to, you mentioned the Bible about like, don't worry. And I found the verse that I wanted to share with you. It was actually Matthew 6:25. It's like, therefore I tell you, don't worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you wear. Is life more than food, and the body than the clothes? Like, look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
that's the Matthew quote. So then Luke's
similar.
So it's similar. So it's very similar. That was the passage I read today.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
Yeah. But ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed this discussion of the DC talks. David and I, we love getting deep into this just because we have a lot of insight that we see, and maybe we can see ahead. Maybe this is a victim of our own imagination, but the signs are there. And by having these conversations, we hope we could spark some curiosity within you for you to go and explore yourself and to unpack and see where it leads you. But thank you for joining us for this episode this week. Make sure to follow us on David V. Chinelli _realtor on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at David Chinelli Realtor.
Don't forget your own Waverly to FM. Don't you want to put a plug in for you guys too?
I'm a little plug. I'm gonna get there. And if you are looking to create a podcast, start a podcast, or have your podcast edited, check us out at wavely.fm. Hit me up, set up a meeting, and we can discuss and see what you're looking to do and see what can come out of it. But hope you have a great week ahead, and we'll see you next week. Ciao.
Bye.